This video is sponsored by Lumia Stream. More on them later.
Alright, who we banning?
8 years.
You're not wearing any pants? Yeah?
That's a long time to be streaming. And I'm not saying that's a brag, I'm not a huge streamer by any means. Actually, it kind of feels weird making this video, it kind of feels like I'm sucking myself off. I'm just saying, I've been around for a while. I went from being a speedrunner, playing the exact same game every single day, to making YouTube videos, teaching you guys about streaming and all the ins and outs about how to use OBS. And the only reason why I'm able to make any of these videos is because I've spent hours and hours tinkering with OBS, constantly improving my stream, playing with every single OBS plugin under the sun. And so I thought, since we just hit 100k subs on the channel, let's take a look back at my stream and every single improvement I made to grow my stream from 0 viewers to where I am today. "2014. The year I started streaming. I started off as a speedrunner, and I didn't really care much about being a streamer. I just wanted to play a game that I really liked with a bunch of cool friends on Skype. Yeah, that's how we did it back in the day. Discord wasn't a thing. We had to use Skype, and it was straight trash. I didn't have a lot going on with my overlay, just the game, a little chat window. This controller overlay is pretty sweet, and just check out that BRB screen. I didn't use a webcam at the time. It's hard to believe now, but I'm actually super shy in real life. I'm very introverted. I mean, you can just hear it in the way that I talk.
Oh god, I'm dead. For sure dead.
It didn't take long before I decided to pick up a webcam. It was a tiny little $11 webcam, literally the cheapest Logitech webcam you could buy. No lighting, no fancy background, no nothing. But that was a big step for me. I didn't have a lot of money back then. I was using a PC from 2009 at the time, and it was rough. I was only using a tiny little headset mic. It was the worst production quality, but that was the standard back then. For the most part, that's all you really needed to stand out on Twitch at the time. In 2015, I decided to pick up a new mic. It was my first XLR mic. It was like $26, and even though the mic is good, I would actually still use the mic today if I really had to. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how to connect it properly, so it didn't sound very good. But keep in mind, this is 2015, and basically nobody was using an XLR setup back then. I also made my first real overlay, which had a direct link to my PayPal for donations, because things like Streamlabs, which was called Twitch Alerts at the time, was still relatively new, and so that was the way that most people had donations set up on their stream. Things like follower alerts and sub alerts weren't really mainstream yet. Over time, I'd make more changes to my overlay. I even made my own logo, which looks a lot like the breast cancer ribbon. And eventually, I switched over from using OBS Classic to OBS Studio, which at the time was called the OBS Multi-Platform. I started experimenting with some of OBS's features, like the scroll filter, which I used to get this scrolling city effect for the background of my starting soon screen. I also added this audio visualizer thing, which was pretty neat, and I was just enjoying playing around with OBS. But I did something that at the time was revolutionary. Stinger transitions. Stinger transitions are those sleek animations that play whenever you switch scenes in OBS. They're pretty much the standard now. There's so many places where you can download free ones or tutorials for making your own. I even made my own tutorial. But man, stinger transitions were not easy in 2015. They weren't even a feature in OBS until like 2 years later. If you wanted to add a stinger transition to your stream, you literally had to make an auto hotkey script to play the video file, switch scenes, and then bind that to a key on your keyboard, because things like the Stream Deck or Touch Portal didn't exist yet. It was so overly complicated, but I wanted to do it because nobody else really cared about production value at the time. There were no channels like Alpha Gaming or Gaming Careers or Epos Vox that were making videos about OBS tips. It was really difficult to figure out stuff like this. But there were 2 YouTubers that showed me how to make stinger transitions. Nikon Punch and Cityside Gaming. These two guys made tutorials for how to set up stinger transitions for OBS. The one from Nikon Punch doesn't exist anymore, but the Cityside Gaming one does. I'll leave a link to it in the corner. I highly recommend that you watch it. It's the most convoluted and complicated setup, and there's no way I would have been able to figure any of that out on my own. The sad thing is, I don't even know if these guys make content anymore, but genuinely, wherever you guys are, it was small YouTubers like you that set me on this path of pushing the limits of OBS and making the kinds of tutorials that I make for you guys. 2016 came around. I was mostly still grinding my speedruns. There was no Twitch affiliate program yet, so I mostly just did some minor adjustments to my overlays. I also got pneumonia that year, and that really sucked. I actually cracked 2 of my ribs just from coughing alone. It was really bad. I probably should have gone to the hospital, and I definitely shouldn't have been streaming. Anyway, since I wasn't a very good speedrunner, I thought to myself that I needed to compensate for that somehow. So I decided that I wanted to have the cleanest looking stream overlay in the entire speedrunning community. You see that blurry background behind my gameplay? Oh my god, if you thought stinger transitions were hard to do back then, wait until you hear what I did with this. Today, if you wanted to have a blurry background effect, you just download a plugin for OBS, add a blur filter, and you're done. That's not how I did it. There were no blur plugins back then. So what I did was I literally made 25 copies of my gameplay sources, reduced the opacity of all the layers, and then pixel shifted them slightly, just enough so that it looked like it was blurry. To this day, I still use the same blur effect for all my designs, and apparently it's a pretty popular one too, because I've seen dozens of you guys do the exact same effect for your stream. It was just so much harder to do back then, but I had no life, and creating 25 copies was the only way to achieve that blur effect that I really wanted. That was until 2017. 2017 was a huge year, not just for me, but the entire streaming industry in general. There were so many things that came out that year that pushed the whole streaming industry forward. The first version of the Stream Effects plugin came out, which added a blur filter, which meant that I didn't have to deal with the bullshit of adding 25 copies of my gameplay source anymore. On top of that, the original Stream Deck came out, and the Twitch affiliate program was unveiled for the first time. I was learning so much about streaming that I was starting to forget things. So that's when I uploaded my first OBS tutorials.
All right, so this is going to be for people who want to record in OBS, but don't necessarily have the greatest computer.
I posted them to my old YouTube channel, and they were like the worst videos. No editing, no webcam, just pure information. But I was frustrated because nobody was making videos about OBS or giving tips for new streamers. So out of frustration, I just uploaded my own videos, even if they were really bad. So with all this new streaming tech coming out, I was starting to get bored of speedrunning. I had so much more fun with the actual production of my stream than the actual game I was playing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still love Super Metroid, but that was the only thing I did for like 4 years. The problem was, everybody that watched me at the time only wanted to watch me speedrun. The thing is, you should never play a game that makes you unhappy just to keep the audience that you already have. Anytime that you change the kind of content you make, you're always going to be anxious about losing viewers, but I promise you, it's not worth it. Speedrunning made me miserable. So in 2018, I quit. I started doing more variety, playing games I actually wanted to play, did some speed cubing. I also got into mechanical keyboards, which was a huge mistake. And at the same time, I really started to focus more on my production value. I got a new mic, a new camera, I became a real gamer and added some RGB lights behind me, and I started simplifying my overlays because I thought that minimal design aesthetic was really the future of streaming. By the time 2019 came around, I had learned so much about making overlays and making stinger transitions that I really wanted to try something new. So I started a YouTube channel, Nutty's Center for Kids Who Want to Learn How to Stream Good, or Stream Good for short. I ended up changing the name to Nutty later on, but apparently somebody recently started a channel called Stream Good, That channel has nothing to do with me, it's just a total coincidence. Anyway, the idea was to document everything I had learned about streaming and OBS so that I didn't forget anything later on, but it ended up being really useful information for you guys. So while I was having fun playing games like Chrono Trigger, Banjo-Kazooie, Zelda, weird indie games none of you give a fuck hearing about, I was also pushing out OBS videos to YouTube. The start was rough. I had never made a proper YouTube video before, never used a video editor, had no experience recording myself on camera, so I was doing weird stuff like that hand thing that Harris does.
Why am I praying to you?
But 2020 is a year things got crazy. Probably the craziest year in my career as a content creator. You might notice that I haven't really talked much about growth to this point, and that's because in the whole 6 years that I had been streaming, I never really grew. I was always stuck between 10, 20, maybe 30 viewers. But there were so many new and exciting things happening, so many new plugins for OBS, channel points were just introduced on Twitch, and nobody was making videos about them. So I kept making videos. Then in April, I just started growing insanely fast. I doubled my viewership in the span of like 2 weeks, and what I noticed was there were so many new people coming into my stream and asking me questions about OBS and streaming. I realized that people that came to my Twitch stream from my YouTube channel probably wanted to hear more about what they just watched on my YouTube channel, so I stopped playing games on stream and made myself a just chatting streamer. Because I already had experience changing my content in the past when I quit speedrunning, it was way easier for me to change my content a second time. So every stream, I just sit down and answer all your streaming questions. I had discovered what my niche was, and I was gonna ride the wave and see where it took me. Over the next year, I met a ton of really smart people. One of them was Leorin, who I actually knew back from when I was a speedrunner, and he told me that he was working on a program that would allow your OBS to react to Twitch subs and donations. Leorin board. I knew instantly that this was the future of streaming. Nothing like it existed at the time. See, up until that point, every streamer was using some form of basic alerts. Every time someone subs, a random GIF would pop up, but Leorin board was different. You could have alerts that reacted to elements within OBS. You can apply crazy filters, you could animate your camera, slide it from side to side, zoom it in and out. It was groundbreaking. So I made the very first Leorin board video on YouTube. It took chat interaction to a whole new level. You could basically let your viewers take control of your stream with filters and effects. Some of the early effects I came up with were really basic, like this freeze frame effect or this effect that spins your camera around. But over time, the effects just got crazier and crazier and crazier. Not long after that, a company reached out to me, who also happened to be sponsoring today's video, and I know it's weird that this video has a sponsor, but trust me, it's actually important to the story. Lumia Stream, a new program that allowed your viewers to take control of your RGB lights. On the surface, it sounds kind of gimmicky, and I get that, but I'm always trying to think one step ahead, and I saw potential in Lumia Stream to take stream interaction to another level yet again. The biggest selling point to me was that it was compatible with so many different brands of lights. So they sent me a set of these Yi lights that I could use, and I got to work right away. We ended up combining the functionality of Lumia Stream with Leorin board and a bunch of other tools to create some seriously crazy effects that made my stream so much more fun and engaging than just, hey, I made your lights orange. I mean, if you think about it, in the span of 3 years, we went from having alerts that look like this to full-blown animations with reactive lights, punch-in zooms, crazy filters. One of my favorites was the meltdown effect, which makes my lights flash red behind me while violently shaking my camera. I made a tutorial for you guys if you want to check it out. There's also a link down below if you want to try it out for yourself. I honestly use Lumia Stream every time I stream, and it's become really important for all the different effects that I run. Since then, I've constantly been chasing the next innovation in streaming. We've added so much more tech. We added a sub printer, which prints out every single sub alert onto physical paper. I set up this touchscreen monitor that you guys can interact with. We have a gazillion different camera angles. I released my own software called Noobs Commander, which is another tool people could use to create insane effects for their stream. We were just having a good time. And then I got fired. I didn't mention this before, but yeah, I worked as a software developer for like 5 years, and because of the pandemic, people started losing their jobs. The company I worked for started laying off some of its employees. And by some, I mean just me. I was the only one. But thankfully, thanks to you guys, I was able to stick to doing content creation full time. And it was the best decision my former boss made on my behalf. Didn't really appreciate that, but whatever. But it's 2022. And if I got this video out in time, this video should be premiering for you guys during my first ever 24-hour stream. So for those of you that are watching that stream, we're about to unbox this.